From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis and Josh Nelson.
Welcome to a new episode of Sox Machine Live. This is a special edition of the episode as we are joined by a very funny comedian who also happens to be a diehard Chicago White Sox fan. He's also been hosting the podcast Never Not Funny longer than Jim and I have been podcasting about the Chicago White Sox. You've seen him on many shows, including the Conan O'Brien Show, and you can watch him live in person at Zany's in Rosemont on Thursday, September 14th. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sox Machine Live for the very first time. It's Jimmy Pardo. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Josh and Jim. It's I'm honored to be here, sincerely. I think I'm a fan of you guys. I'm a fan of, honest to God, I really am. I love what you guys tweet about, and you just seem like, we don't know each other, you just seem like decent men. And I mean that in the way that I said it, I guess. All right.
I appreciate it, especially what has been happening the last 9 days, Jim.
Yeah. And like for people who don't know, Jimmy's been podcasting since what, 2006?
2006. We, at one point, my partner, Matt Belknap, and I were the #1 podcast in the world. And we are not anywhere near that anymore because Joe Rogan decided to step on us with his big, weird conspiracy theory foot. Yeah, it's we've been doing it a long time, and I'm very, very grateful that Matt came to me and said, let's start a podcast, and here we are. So,
and not only podcasting, but podcasting for a paying audience, which everybody is doing now. That you were doing it first, people thought like, well, you're kind of crazy to do that. Nobody's doing it. Now everybody's doing it. So on more than one front, you are a pioneer in this field.
Well, A, I thank you for using the word pioneer. B, you're not wrong. When we went in 2008, when we switched to a pay model, we were literally, you're done. You guys, nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody's going to follow you. Good luck with that. And you know what? Of course, not everybody did, but a heck of a lot did. And thank God they did, because, it's been, I've been able to make a living and doing podcasting again before other people were. And I'm very, very grateful. And yes, thank you.
Did Barack Obama ever say like, hey, thanks for showing us how to podcast here?
No, he was too busy talking to Mark Maron over at his garage. So I didn't have the opportunity to talk to Barack Obama. But I did. There was a time where Conan O'Brien on a regular basis would make fun. I worked for Conan for about 10 years. And every day he would grab, he's a giant. He's literally a foot taller than me because I'm a short man. But he would grab me by the shoulders and he'd go, hey, buddy, how's fake radio going? You still doing fake radio? And he now has the second biggest podcast in the world after he made fun of mine for 7 years. So
any apologies or no?
Say it again, Jim. Any
apologies, or is he just pretending that he thought of it?
No, I'm thinking it's B. I'm thinking he thinks he invented podcasting. There was an article came out. It's got to be right when Conan started that basically did say Conan O'Brien has invented podcasting, and we were all at our studio the day that the article was like, oh, did he? Oh, that's interesting. There's a lot of folks that might have something to say about that, but I was very grateful to work for him for as long as I did. He's a good friend, but no, Maron will at least acknowledge that I was around before him. Conan, again, a good friend, but I think he thinks he started this.
Well, you're doing fake radio. He's doing podcasting.
You know what? You're
right.
Right.
That's different.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's different.
Very fair.
As far as timely comments in the YouTube section, and for those that are watching the live stream, thank you so much. We got this wonderful comment that I started right away, and it's a comment that says, I feel bad for Jimmy Pardo. I hate to be the comedian to follow up Chris Getz. Funniest set I've heard in years. And this is timely that you joined us, Jimmy, because again, you're a diehard White Sox fan.
Yes.
I would love to get your thoughts on what has transpired in the last 9 days, because Jim and I have been joking, man, what a year it's been the past week, and it just continues to add on with each passing day.
It is. Now, I have not seen, sadly, I was not able to see this Chris Getz, not Christopher Guest. That's a brilliant filmmaker. I have not been able to see it, but I'm glad that they could find some utility guy to run the team. And thank Christ they went internal and didn't think outside the box at all. Really smart thinking on the team's part. I mean, look, we still don't know. I mean, the shooting thing is still like the craziest thing in the world. Like the woman now she's denying that she snuck a gun and there's maybe some police involvement. Like the whole thing is
the ATF.
I think it goes all the way to the top, Jim.
From the owner's suite.
I'm tired of these White Sox fans.
Am I wrong? Is there an updated story article on that, or is there new news on that, or is it still the woman snuck it in? And I don't want to even describe how they say she snuck it in. It seems unfair to anybody to have to hear the word.
That's what we brought up in the last show. It's like backhanded fat shaming is the way that they're reporting it. The latest
stalled out there with like the police not confirming, but not denying, pushing back a little bit, saying like, that's not coming from us. We'll let you know when we have something. The ATF apparently is getting involved.
Yeah.
But Jerry Reinsdorf opened up his rare media session that did not actually take questions from anybody, but he introduced Getz, and he said that he still maintains that the shots came from outside the stadium. So he is not abiding by that. The lawyer for one of the victims has said that that she did not bring a gun in, and it's got to be very weird if you're a White Sox fan just going to a game, and all of a sudden you're accused of bringing a gun into the stadium, and you're just happen to be like there, thinking you're going to have a nice night at the bleachers watching Vanilla Ice afterwards, and now you have to say like I'm not the first person in White Sox history to bring a gun into guaranteed right field. That's going to be very bizarre. So I don't want to go all the way into that theory just because if it happens to be truly baseless, like you got to feel terrible for anybody accused of bringing a gun to the stadium that did not, because God forbid what it happens if it were you to be accused.
It's certainly not at the same level as Richard Jewell, but it rings, Richard Jewell comes to mind, and with the Atlanta bombings, again, I am not comparing the two, but that poor woman, if she didn't do that, then that's insanity. Like real. So she's going to watch, it's the Bartman ball. This poor woman is now for the rest of her life, oh, that's the woman that snuck a gun in and accidentally shot her friend in the leg or whatever, it is. So I'm with you. It seems weird to throw that on the woman if that's not what she did. But again, I don't know. I'm a dumb comedian in Los Angeles. What do I know?
Again, it's been a wild 9 days. It just continues to grow, Jim, even like after today's press conference with Chris Getz. During the press conference, Jerry Reinsdorf actually spoke, Jimmy. And
what does he sound like?
Yeah, it was fascinating. He sounds like he's actually 87 years old. And he brought up Branch Rickey a couple of times and trying to find his Branch Rickey. And he decided to promote Chris Getz because the people that he had on his list of external candidates, he didn't bother interviewing them because, quote, I already know them. So the White Sox didn't bother interviewing anyone outside the organization. Jerry Reinsdorf probably didn't even interview Chris Getz for this role and just promote him. So there you go. You're caught up. That was the White Sox press conference. That's how this team is being ran in the near future.
But to that Facebook comment, pardon me. What did Chris Getz do? Did he just say the usual rhetoric that we hear about this team and needs to focus on fundamentals and all the nonsense, or like what was so, I guess, disappointing or ridiculous about it?
He was in the awkward position of having, he came in with an opening statement saying that, even though he's internal hire, he's going to be different. Things are going to be done differently. But because he doesn't want to smear the people who hired him, he couldn't actually say what that was. Gotcha. And so somebody, I think it was John Greenberg of The Athletic, asked him, like, given that you're the third in command of this very disappointing enterprise, why do you think you deserve this job? And he could not actually answer that question. He said at one point, Pedro Grifol has been wearing many different hats. Somebody asked him what he meant by that. And then he paused for like 5 seconds, the only silence he really had all day. And either he realized he used the wrong phrase, or he hoped that somebody wouldn't follow up on that question because he could not actually identify the multiple jobs he was doing, which is what wearing many hats means.
Right.
He just basically said many times, like, he's a first-year manager, which is one hat for the count, one hat.
But maybe let's be fair to Chris Getz, who again was a terrific third baseman. he
second baseman.
Did he play third base for a little bit?
Maybe.
No, I'm thinking of Joe Creedy.
Or Mark Tien.
No. I'm definitely thinking of Joe Creedy. My apologies.
I thought you were thinking about White Sox who went to the Royals and then did nothing there.
Right. Is it possible he knows something that we don't, in that he was wearing 3 hats, in that he had to work around Hahn and Williams while wearing that first-year managerial hat? Is that possible, or am I giving him? Am I giving everybody way too much credit?
It's possible that you're maybe representing something closer to the truth while giving nobody credit.
Okay.
You could be representing a different kind of messed up situation that you're actually right, but still very, very wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's my life. I appreciate you deciding what I do, how I get by every single day.
So, Jimmy, to touch on your White Sox fandom, I'm not saying that you're old, but what was it like being a White Sox fan before Jerry Reinsdorf owned the team?
Well, first of all, the age thing is hurtful, as I see the gray in Jim's beard. I don't know if that's fair to attack me.
I got gray too.
Yeah, we all do.
We're old.
The White Sox have aged us all.
That's true. We look like Barack Obama after his first term. I was a kid during the Bill Veeck years, so being a fan of that era was showers in the outfield, and Harry Carey being shirtless, and Jimmy Pardo yelling about Disco Demo. That was the fun that I had as a kid, and going to the old Comiskey. And, listen, I try to explain to people, and like on a Sunday, my dad would go, should we go to the game? And we'd go to the game, and my dad would park next to the stadium, like literally would pull up on the side street and park, and we'd walk up and go to a game. Like, that's how little people were there. Like, we were able to park, or how few people were there. And it was always, you had your own section, basically. It was fun. And, I think the three of us may have tweeted about this, or at least I tweeted and you guys read it and then ignored me. It's very possible. Those teams weren't great, but they were fun to watch. The late 70s, the mid to late 70s, Eric Soderholm and Chet Lemon and Oscar Gamble and Wayne Nordhagen and Francisco Barrios, like, these guys, those teams weren't good. I thought, I was a little boy, so I was like, they're Major League Baseball players. This is amazing. But, they were fun to watch. Whereas what we're currently going through the last 3 years, the first year with LaRusso was still a little bit fun, but the last 2 certainly have been a disaster. So I guess, Josh, long-windedly, and you asked me to be a guest, so you knew that was going to happen.
Yep.
It was more it was fun. Look, that last year of Renteria was also fun. Let the kids play. That whole era was also fun. And God forbid we keep that energy on the team. Let's bring back the geezer. But who was, by the way, Tony La Russa in '83 was the best manager in baseball. I mean, so it's like, and he's a Hall of Famer. So I'm not putting him down completely, but I guess more fun would be my answer. It was a lot of fun back in the '70s and early '80s.
Well, it was funny when we were shooting messages back and forth before recording this. He said, well, I don't know how much knowledge I'll have to bring to this. And what's amazing about this current White Sox team is there's no debate, like among old school fans, new school fans, analytically inclined, people there for fun. Everybody's miserable, like uniquely, or I would say like uniformly miserable. Like maybe a couple of years ago, we'd say like, Yoan Moncada, is he good or bad? Well, he's good at defense. He strikes out too much. He could argue back and forth. Really, it's just like Luis Roberts, and even like Dylan Cease is now turned mediocre. So like, there's nobody to even argue over. It's like, it's stud and duds, star and scrubs. There's no plural.
It's a fantasy baseball team.
Yeah. So like, that's what's kind of fun about like, bringing on at this point is just like, no matter how much if you watch like one 5-game sample of this team, whether it's 5 games in a row or 5 games randomly scattered, you're going to see pretty much what everybody has been seeing, which is a bad baseball team that needed a leadership overhaul, like a lobotomy. And we only got one, maybe half of those. And right. So that's where we are.
Let me ask you guys a question, and this is a little bit on topic, Jim, and a little bit off, and I apologize for derailing with this question.
No,
when it comes to Lucas Giolito, it's 2 parts, and you guys, again, you're more knowledgeable about the game than I am. Again, I talk about my genitals for a living, so I don't know what I'm saying. Question A, would you have kept and extended Lucas Giolito and traded Dylan Cease? That's question A. And maybe you guys talked about this in a previous show, and I apologize for not knowing that. B, when the waiver thing went down and the Angels just released Lucas Giolito, you certainly would have, the White Sox could have picked him up before any other team. Do you pick him back up for next to nothing and then extend him because you know he's actually a decent pitcher? Your thoughts as the pros.
Okay, well, with Cease, we were on board enough with trading him at the deadline. What the White Sox got for Giolito, don't mind that trade. Like they got, I think, more than fair value for him, especially with the way what Giolito provided for the Angels. That kind of looks like a mistake on the Angels' part. The White Sox were good to take advantage of just how hungry they were for that. So that's fine, but we were definitely kind of crossing our fingers for a Cease trade. That would have been exciting. Certainly not trading him for nothing, but the walks were high enough to where this guy might have a hard time threading that needle to be excellent for, the kind of Cy Young season he produced. Did that once, but doing that over and over again with as many guys as he walks, kind of tough to do. So we're kind of on board for trading him. As for Giolito bringing him back, I think now they're at the part where just lose as many games as you can because that improves their chances of getting the first overall pick for the draft. But free agency comes around, given that Giolito might have dinged his stock a little bit with how he's pitched the last couple of months, maybe worth reopening those discussions and saying hey, what's your price now?
Right. Okay.
It'd be very White Sox this season because, again, it's a draft lottery. And if we're in Nashville, Jim, on that last day of the winter meetings and the White Sox are the first team picked at pick 15, be like, we went through all of this crap and they lose the lottery. Instead of having the third overall pick, now they got the 15th overall pick and they're still stuck being mediocre. That would be the White Sox luck.
We talked on the live show about the Chris Getz conference saying that there'd be one set of blood curdling screams when they traded for Sal Perez. The second would be when they end up announced first in the draft lottery after losing 104 games or whatever it is.
So one of the things that I really enjoy in your guys' podcast, there's two things. One, it sounds like I'm eavesdropping on a conversation of 3 or 4 people eating breakfast at Denny's, just talking about everything and anything that comes across their way. The second thing is Jason Benetti. I learned more about Jason Benetti through Never Not Funny than I learned through the broadcasts when he's calling the games with Steve Stone. And obviously that's on purpose because Jason Benetti's not the main character. The Chicago White Sox, what's happening on the field is the main character, and that should be the focus. But I really enjoy the conversations that you've had with Jason over the last couple of years, and you spoke with him in mid-June. What are your thoughts about Jason Benetti and being the voice of the Chicago White Sox now, and fingers crossed long term, even though his contract doesn't come up after the 2024 season?
I think every other team probably wants him because I think he's terrific. And that's the reason that I initially reached out to him to join us on Never Not Funny. I did not at that time know that we grew up 3 miles from each other or certainly different ages, as you love to point out. I think he's the best. I mean, we all have the MLB package and you listen to other games or you listen, when you're in the car, Sirius XM gives you the home feed and you're stuck listening. I think Len Casper's great. And I think, but I think Jason is, I was a Hawk guy. I wasn't a Hawk basher. I enjoyed his homerism. And I think that Jason has enough homerism to make me happy. He also has enough humor in him to make me happy and doesn't go too much with it. I know some people online disagree with that. They think that it's too much, but again, I don't shut up. So I can't fault the guy for saying too much. I think he really shined. And again, I know this was different people disagree with this. When Steve got sick last week and Jason had to do that entire, 7 innings on his own, Vince Scully style, it was like, if you didn't know he had a partner that just disappeared, and which was weird, by the way, and Jason should be, somebody should yell at him for acknowledge why Steve Stone's disappeared from the booth, for Christ's sake. But I thought he was amazing. I thought he kept us, he kept me engaged. And I think that's been his magic along with Steve Stone's of, we have not watched good teams these last 2 years and I still turn them on. I'm still, I watched them lose 9-0 to the Orioles. because these two guys are entertaining me. And I hope he doesn't walk when his contract is up, because he's one of the reasons that I tune in when the team blows. So I think he's great, and I'm great. I'm grateful that, honestly, for the friendship, really, that he and I have become friends, and text from time to time, and he's just. It's also, that's the other thing. He's just a good guy. That's the other thing. He's just a good person.
You got to pop in the booth a couple of years ago for a couple of innings, right? How was that?
It was. It was at an Angels game, and it was one of those weekends where Steve didn't go to wasn't on the trip, and he had Bill Walton on. Jason had Bill Walton on the first night. And I forget who we had on the second night. The guy that who was it?
Mike Schur.
Mike Schur, right? And then he had Mike O'Brien on the Sunday game, and I just happened to be there with my son Oliver, and I said I'm going to be at the game, and he's like, "Well, come up and say hello." And then when I got up to say hello, he's like, "Do you want to come back and do a couple of innings?" And or an inning, and then I brought some luck to the booth, and so he had me stick around for another inning to see if I could help out. Jim, it was. Look, I'm very grateful. I've had a really decent career. Then I've made, I did stand up on the Tonight Show, which is every comedian's dreams as a young comedian. And when I'm able to be in the booth talking about my favorite team, like, it was only second, honestly, to when I got to throw out the first pitch, which I've had the pleasure of now doing twice. And it was up there with that. Like, I got emails from people I went to grade school with that I hadn't talked to in, according to Josh, 75 years. And so I was able to reconnect with some people going, I saw you in the booth, and I didn't know that you were doing, like, it was a dream. It really was. And it was a lot of fun. I was worried about stepping on Mike O'Brien's toes, because he was the guy that was supposed to be there for the whole game, and I'm getting wedged in, but I was grateful that I did. And then I was supposed to do it in 2020 for the whole game. And then, of course, we all know what happened. So that did not happen. And then things have shifted where now it's, I keep saying Craig. I always say Craig Graybeck, but it's not. It's Gordon Beckham. Seems to be the fella doing the road games now. But it was great.
Similar careers.
Were they? I don't
with one guy.
know. Aren't they kind of interchangeable? I mean,
I know.
That said, guys, I will tell you this: when my wife and son and I went to the Angels game this past series when they were here, and I had never met Gordon Beckham, and my wife's like, that guy's a baseball player. Like, he, first of all, they talk about his hair, and rightfully so. His hair is effing great, and his eyes are piercingly beautiful. And it's like, and his jaw is, can cut, an old fashioned soup can open for you. He's just that guy, and he could not have been nicer. He welcomed me and Danielle and Oliver in, and just, they always treat me very, very nice when I go to the booth. But I had never met Gordon, and he was truly just a decent guy. It seemed pleasant.
Yeah, Gordon definitely has that Southern charm. And again, you guys can listen to Jason Benetti along with Jimmy on the Never Not Funny podcast. And what I enjoyed in your last time you spoke with Jason, which, by the way, thank you for the shout out.
You're welcome. I think I gave both you guys a shout out. Did I not?
You did. You brought up Robin Ventura as the worst White Sox manager in your life. And that was in mid-June, and here we are at the end of August. And I feel like I want to nominate Pedro Grifol as one of the worst White Sox managers of our lifetime. And I think we have three strong candidates here. Poor Terry Bevington. There is not a flattering picture of old Terry online. There's just not. I feel bad, but this is the best that I could do, Terry. Someone recently has called Pedro Grifol the Cuban Kalu, that annoying kid show. I thought that's a little harsh, but I also at the same time thought it was pretty funny. Yeah. And I found a Robin Ventura pick that he looks studious and at least showing some emotion, Jim, if you call back on that Sox Fest
consternation. Consternation, I think. Yeah, Bevington always looks confused and or angry.
Yes. This is not one of my proudest moments, but the White Sox were playing the Angels back in the late 90s, and I was still a drunk. And I was, this is the story as I was told it. The people that I went to the game with turned to each other and said, "What happened to Jimmy?" And somebody said, "Oh, there he is on the dugout yelling at Terry Bevington." And I remember going down there to yell at Terry Bevington and tell him he was the worst manager in the history of baseball. And Albert Bell told me to stop it, even though he was like, "Dude, you're being funny, but stop it." Like, I literally was getting yelled at for being an obnoxious drunk, and rightfully so. Like, I don't know, because I don't know if it, we didn't have DVR yet. Maybe we did, but like, I wouldn't have been surprised if they went and look at this idiot on Sports Center. Like, if they would have cut to me, like, I guess that's the type of scene I was making. And,
were you on top of the dugout, like on top of it, or
I think I was leaning
like
over it. Yeah, I think I was leaning over, and which again, I'm only 5'4", so me leaning over means I'm crawling on top of it like a toddler. So it was. That's my thoughts on Terry Bevington. I may have the Miller Lights may have had a lot to do with it, but my feelings were there. As for Robin, it's funny, how the on Facebook it'll bring up memories for you. And I was memory day one was when they hired Robin was, I'm paraphrasing, but worst idea in the world. One of my favorite third basemen of all time, but he's going to be a horrible manager. And then the next day, new memory came up. You know what? Let's give him a chance. There's no reason why we can't give this guy an opportunity. And I think my first post proved right. Boy, what a great third baseman, right?
Yeah, stayed only 3 years too long.
Right?
Like
you see what, and I guess that's the problem with Grifol. Like, I kind of thought if they don't hire from within, somebody new will come in and clean house. And by the way, Ethan Katz gets a free walk in this whole conversation, which confuses me. Like, that bullpen's not handled well. They leave starters in either too long or too short. They don't know what. So, like, but why does everybody? Well, we got to keep Ethan Katz, and then we got to get rid of everybody else. Why? Why is he the guy we keep? Because Giolito was good for him in college or whatever hell I don't, or high school, whenever he pitched for him. Walk me through it from Nashville, Jim.
Okay. Well, I think Ethan Katz had the fortune of following Don Cooper. So somebody who sounded really old, and like Don Cooper was somebody who hung around 5 years too long. So by the time Ethan Katz shows up, like, oh, he's talking in 2020's language. Right. He's good enough for now. Or like, he's good enough for the foreseeable future. And then, as we have data on performances and how everybody is doing, like, perhaps prior should be updated, but the White Sox really don't do that all that often. So there's that. Also, you have to be the biggest problem on the White Sox to be somebody worth addressing. And the White Sox have so many bigger problems that, like, if you're not a problem or not the biggest, like Chris Getz, like when Chris Getz was the rumored candidate, I assumed because Bob Nightingale had reported it that it was true, because Bob Nightingale reports unpopular ideas from Jerry Reinsdorf, and most of the time they happen to be right. Everybody gets mad at Bob because he just happens to be the messenger. Yeah. But like, no, he's just hearing it directly from the people who are in charge. So like when this was originally happening, I thought, yeah, Getz is probably it. But the sliver, like the portion of my brain that held out hope that something could be different, was Chris Getz like feeling himself a little bit and saying like, hey, here's my chance. Maybe I'll leak myself as the candidate, not realizing that everybody didn't like him either, but just because, Williams and Hahn are in charge and more present, more unpopular, that they were just getting all the heat. Now that they're gone, everybody is open season now, and Getz is like stepping right in the crosshairs, being like, yeah, this is my time. Like, bam. Like, right. Unfortunately, no, he is the guy. So, but yeah, just with the way White Sox are, retroactive, definitely not proactive, passive about solving problems. It really takes critical mass of issues and players calling them out, as we saw with Keenan Middleton, to where like all of a sudden, now it's worth addressing once we're a national embarrassment. That's the time to strike.
So do you think he's one and done then, or do you think that Getz is going to keep him around and at least see what he can do a second season?
Oh, Getz said Grifol is staying.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So yeah, that was one of the things. And so now we have all September. If they win 3 games in September, Grifol is staying.
Right.
So,
all right.
Fascinating dynamic.
It's going to be a tough job for Jason and Steve to be entertaining when the product is that bad.
Well, the good news for Jason is September he goes and does a lot of college football and
That's true.
and a lot of the national games. So he may not be around for most of this debacle of September. That's about to happen. But at least we get to watch Robert Jr. go for 40. I mean, that'll be and 40 and 20 if he goes for 20 stolen bases. So that'll be something to look forward to.
That's pretty much all we've got to look forward to on the field. So when you're in Los Angeles and you're talking ball with, I'm sure, a lot of Dodgers fans out there, and obviously the Dodgers have been good for quite some time now. Do you ever get the question asked or posed to you of why do you still root for the White Sox?
The person that asked that the most is me. Why? In fact, at the beginning of this year, when they signed Clevenger, I was very vocal about how I thought that was a horrible pickup because of his, his history, his off-field behavior. That whether and who knows how that landed. Obviously, they did the research to see that he should still be on the team anyway. That's when I was like, why do I still root for them? Why do I do this? And other people are like, yeah, the Dodgers are right here. You can go see them. Or if you want, be the Billy Crystal of baseball and go be the famous guy that likes the Angels. You know what I mean? Like people were saying that. And to which I had to say famous is a strong phrase, but strong word, but I get it. I think it's just nostalgia. You know what I mean? They're my team. And, yes, what happens if they move though? Then it's one of those things like, then is that time for me to cut bait? Or are they still my White Sox? And they're just not in Chicago. I don't, they're never going to move, but my point. But no, nobody ever asked me that. I think they don't care. To be honest with you. I think they're too worried about their own lives in this narcissistic show business world that I'm in. So, but yeah, really just me, like, why do I keep doing this? But again, I've watched horrible teams before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do you dabble with the Dodgers or in terms because like Nashville, like I'll root for the Predators if they're not directly, competing with the Blackhawks or the Titans, I like seeing hometown fans happy and excited about sports. So do you dabble with the Dodgers or the Angels in terms of like looking for good baseball?
It's here's the thing, and this will be what I'm about to say will be very unpopular with most of your viewers. My favorite team is the White Sox, and then it's a big drop off, but then it's the Cubs because I grew up in a house where my brother loved the Cubs, and you know what? They're a fun team to watch this year, certainly. And also it's my hometown. So if the White, I never understood the anger towards clothing. So if my White Sox can't make the World Series, why wouldn't I want the other team from my hometown to make the World Series? So, and then from the Cubs, it goes down to the Dodgers and Angels, and but I'm certainly not anywhere near as invested. I know, only because of fantasy baseball do I know, their rosters and stuff like that. But, I come home, like even on a day like today where there's no White Sox game, I'm bummed. There's a great Dodgers Braves game tonight.
Yeah.
I have a show, so I can't watch it anyway, but, it's like, I'm not going to sit down and watch that. It's not the White Sox. I'll spend time with my family as opposed to going in the other room going, guys, the Sox are on, like I'm a 1957 dad watching, baseball, but not so much, Jim, but I love going to a game. If somebody said, hey, I got Braves Dodgers tickets for Saturday, you want to go? Yeah, I'm in. No question about it.
Nice. Well, back to some of your comedy and an idea that I have, because if we ever get Sox Fest again, an idea that I have for you is that one of the sketches that you did for the Conan O'Brien show that I still remember because it's just hilarious. You created this character called Metal Detector Mike from Baywatch. Mm-hmm. And for those that are watching, if you haven't seen the sketch, you can go on YouTube and you can watch the sketch and you may think, wow, Jimmy, you were on Baywatch, but that was not the case.
That's
you
correct.
Pretended that you were on Baywatch at an autograph convention to see how many people you could fool.
Yeah.
So how did that sketch come to be? Because it's just hilarious and how you are trying your very hardest to convince people that, yes, I was actually this minor character on Baywatch.
First of all, thank you for liking it. I'm very proud of it. It was really funny and stupid, which is the Conan O'Brien program. And the whole thing is funny and stupid. I mean that in the complimentary. The more that I worked there, the more they started utilizing me in sketches, and then they had me do remotes for them, and And so they asked me to pitch some things. And I pitched one where I go and play for the Harlem Globetrotters, have me join the team. And everybody was on board with that except for the Staples Center. There was something about insurance that they wouldn't do it. But the Globetrotters were all in. And I was like, I don't know. I don't even know what the bid is other than the fact that I'm 5'4" and they're not. You know what I mean? But I pitched that, and I pitched a bunch of other stupid ideas. Really just kind of dreams that I wanted to have. Like I did pitch, hey, why don't I'll go take batting practice with the Dodgers? Won't that be cool? And we'll find the funny there. Like just all these stupid dreams of being that I had as a kid. So I always thought it was fascinating. My father-in-law is Walter Koenig, the gentleman who played Chekhov on the original Star Trek. And so he goes to those conventions and stuff like that. And we, from time to time, my wife and son and I will go and stop by at one of those to visit him and say hello. And they go to lunch, and then I'll come back and meet more people with phony ears on. And so I was like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if I set up a table and was like a guy and nobody knows who I am? Won't that be funny if I just the guy that did it with me, the brilliant Todd Levin, he's like, yeah, but we got to build around it. And so he's like, what if you were from a TV show? And then we settled on Baywatch. We settled on this metal detector Mike, a character that doesn't happen. We shot opening credits that included me in the Baywatch opening credits.
That was amazing. Like, how much fun was it to mock shoot those intros?
Here's the thing. We shot it in the one day that was like 38 degrees on the beach. It was freezing. But there's worse things in the world. So it was fun to answer your question. So, but the actual thing at the Hollywood, for those that haven't seen it, it's one of those fan conventions where people come to take their picture or get an autograph of somebody that they saw on television. Like I was next to Davy Jones, who's since passed away, of the Monkees, and Martin Landau, who's since passed away. So maybe I was bad luck. But I sat there again with the premise being that I'm Metal Detector Mike from Baywatch. The premise being nobody will know who I am, and it'll be funny when nobody knows who I am. Well, that premise, 10 minutes in, hurt my feelings. And I was like, why is nobody stopping to say hello to me? And it's like, the premise is nobody's supposed to know you. And I was just like, but nobody's talking to me. And so.
So you're really like selling the character then?
I really had to, Jim. I had to get out there and I'm showing people my fake resume, and I'm doing all these things to try to get them to care about this guy that doesn't exist. And when they don't, I took it personally. It was horrible. But luckily, it cut together very funny. The best part, sadly, we had to cut out because we shot it. And again, Davy Jones of the Monkees was next to me, and Davy Jones is basically my height, about 5'4". And there was enough noise in the convention hall where even though he was like 10 feet from me, he couldn't really hear me. So I kept on yelling at him like we're in a big fight. Davy Jones and I are in a fight, and we've been mad at each other for years. And people would walk past, and I would go, "Oh, I got to go past that jerk, Davy Jones. Tell him that I." And I would like send messages to Davy Jones, and then he would just like look over at me like, "Why is this guy mad at me?" Because again, he doesn't know nobody knows who I am. And I would yell at him. I go, "That's right, Jones, keep it up." And I would yell at him, and again, loud enough so he doesn't know what's happening. And it was hysterical. It was all. I'm not a big fan of this phrase, but it was all comedy gold. And then we show it in front of an audience. What we used to do with Conan was if something was going to be on the show the next night, we would show it to the audience the night before to see where the laughs are, or do we have to tweak anything. And the Davy Jones stuff kills. And then the next day, Davy Jones dies. And we're like, well, okay, let's not put it on today. Let's show it again to see if it still works with people knowing that Davy Jones had passed away. And it did not still work with Davy Jones passing away. So we had to cut all of that out, which really, honestly, was the meat of the funny. But they still had to put together a good piece. And it again, just stupid fun.
People thought you might have killed Davy Jones, the stress.
You know what? It could have been that. Because the whole premise was I'm gonna beat him up later. So yes, they could have been. His death fell on my hands.
Davy Jones murdered by former actor who played Metal Detector Mike on Baywatch.
That's the good news. Nobody would ever find me because the guy didn't exist. So it was. You know what? Also, Josh, very, very quickly. The sad part was then also because it's just who I am. When people did pay for my autograph as Metal Detector Mike and go, oh yeah, oh, I'm a huge Baywatch fan. Oh yeah. And they would pay the money and I would sign it and I would feel so guilty about it because I'm not from that show. And so then we would cut camera and I would run off and go, look, give me your 20. I mean, here's your $20 back. I can't take your money. We're doing a thing for like, I just felt horribly about it. One woman cried. She was so embarrassed that she bought into it. It was on paper. It was a great idea. We ended up with a great piece of comedy, but it was a lot of emotions to get there.
All right. So I was going to pitch to you, how could we do this at Sox Fest? Because a big part of Sox Fest, if they ever have it again, if they ever want to face their fans ever again, is the autographs. And they bring like former White Sox personalities, managers, and players. Like if we were able to do this again, like what era White Sox team would you want to try to fake as, yes, I'm former ex-White Sox player blank, and then try to fool White Sox fans into thinking that you were actually a former White Sox?
Well, does anybody know the 1987 roster? Nobody does, right? So it's like outside of maybe Ivan Calderon, if he was even on the team in 87, I don't know. So I think it's in that era of the right before the new Comiskey where kind of nobody knew any of the white, who was the first baseman? Greg something?
Greg Walker.
Greg Walker. Like that guy's the most famous name. You know what I mean? Like, so I think I could pull off an 87. And as I like to always say, whenever I have a White Sox shirt on and somebody goes, oh, the White Sox, I go, yeah, I play for the team. I was up for a cup of coffee. And so I think I could sit there and say I was on the 87 White Sox. And if there's a banner behind me that says, 87 White Sox, Jimmy Pardo, utility infielder, it might not be the long line that Frank Thomas is going to get. There's going to be 7 people coming and waiting. Because I'll be honest, I used to go to Sox Fest all the time. I'm the dummy that would have gotten that line. I would go, hey, look, there's no line there. Let's go meet that guy.
Got a comment from Tim saying, yeah, but then whoever he's sitting next to would die later. Case in point, Ivan Calderon.
Oh, yeah. We do have a weird thing on Never Not Funny that if we mention somebody obscure, some obscure actor or athlete, they seem to die in the next 2 weeks. So Calderon better be on watch. He better be going to the doctor in the next 2 weeks because you shouldn't have brought up his name.
That was like Paul F. Tompkins, I think, had a run with that. Alan Thicke. I'm trying to remember the other character he did who died that he had. Oh, Gary Marshall, I think.
Yes,
was the other one. Like in quick succession, just his character is being eliminated.
Yeah. Making those difficult for him to do. By the way, we ran into my buddy Mike Schmidt and I, not the former baseball player. We ran into Alan Thicke at a sandwich shop here in LA one day. And for some reason, I turned to my friend Mike as Alan Thicke is right. He's literally next to me. Like it wasn't Subway, but think of the same sort of thing where you're next to him. And there's Alan Thicke. And I turn to Mike and I go, Mike, say hello to Alan Thicke. And Mike goes, AT, what's shaking, baby? And Alan Thicke looked at us like we were the 2 biggest idiots in the world, but we now have a story for 20 years.
Well, he's Canadian, so he's got to be polite, right? Or did he brush you off?
I believe, my brother-in-law, who has since passed away, Andrew Koenig, was the character Boner on Growing Pains. I don't know if you remember that character. You guys might be too young.
How can you forget? I mean, just by name alone.
Right?
Yeah.
And so Andrew worked for Alan a long time. And I don't know if there was still a lot of Canadian in Alan. Is my polite way of saying that he was not all that nice to us at the sandwich shop.
What kind of sandwich does Alan Thicke order?
I would imagine a club. He probably enjoys the heck of it. He likes the turkey ham with the bacon on that. I got to assume, Josh. I'm not 100% sure, but he strikes me as a club guy, right? Maybe a mayo on wheat.
Well, you mentioned Subway, and that's also one of your favorite comedy bits. Is your experience at Subway. Do you still venture to Subways? I haven't been to Subway in like 10 years, but I still enjoy your Subway bit because it's so true. The people who are way too damn loud ordering their sandwiches.
It first of all, the two of you, your knowledge of comedy is wonderful, and the fact that Paul F. Tompkins characters is fascinating. I just love the fact that you guys love good comedy. My son also loves good comedy, and he hasn't come home yet and said, Dad, who I think is funny, and then name a person that isn't, and me having to go, oh yeah, he's great, son. Luckily, it's all been really, really great comics. But the Subway, it happened. It actually happened in Kansas City. And and I was sitting in the in my booth eating my sandwich, and these two girls came in, and the one's in the booth and the other one's ordering, and they're yelling at each other like one of them's going long for a pass, and it's like, what kind of sandwich? Like at the top of her lungs, what kind of sandwich do you want? And they're yelling, and then she's yelling every ingredient. You want this? You want this? And then she gets down to, hey, do you want lettuce on your sandwich? And I'll clean it up. But she said, no. You know I hate that leafy crap is what but she didn't say crap. Nah, you know I hate that leafy crap. And I thought it was the funniest thing in the world, because who's that mad at lettuce? Who the hell cares? Just say no. Why the anger?
I've never heard of a synonym for lettuce. Like somebody describing in alternate terms.
As leafy crap?
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I should compliment her. Maybe instead of being angry at this woman for all these years, I should be you know what? She's my hero. Speaking of people, I'm not mad at this. I know that we're tight on time, but it is baseball related. I was on the road doing stand-up, and I had to come back. The White Sox were playing the Angels, so I couldn't go to the Friday or Saturday game. I could only make the Sunday matinee. And so I parked my car at LAX so that I could get off the plane, get in my car, and drive to the stadium and hopefully get there in time for the game. So I'm in my travel clothes, and I get to my car. I drive to the stadium, and I go and I put on my White Sox shirt, of course, to represent, and then I put on a pair of shorts that happen to be the exact same color of the blue shirt, White Sox shirt. So it kind of looks like I'm wearing a Chrissy Snow Three's Company jumper. Like it looks like I'm wearing like a leisure suit. And my sneakers happen to be the same exact color blue. And then I had a White Sox hat on that was, of course, the mid 70s White Sox, that blue with the box socks across the front. And so I'm all in blue. And I say to myself, dude, this is a lot of blue. You can't wear this much blue. People are going to talk about you. And then I was like, nobody's going to talk about you. Nobody's looking at you at the stadium. Nobody cares about you. It's self-involved idiot. So okay, fine. So I walk to the stadium. I show my ticket. I'm not in the stadium 5 seconds, and some guy yells out, "What's up, blue guy?" And it's like, to this day, I want to meet that guy because I'm not mad. I love that guy. That guy's the greatest guy in the world. And his buddies probably high-fived him as I'm running to my seat because I'm embarrassed. But I did give him a little wave. I gave him a little wave, and that was my time at that Angels game.
So are you going to be going to a game because the White Sox are home during your Rosemont gig?
I don't have time. I've got to go down to Bloomington, Indiana the next day, and I'm not getting in until the day of my show on the 14th there at in Rosemont. And here's the truth. Had what we were told preseason about the White Sox being a team going to the World Series, had that team been on the field, I probably would have come in a few days earlier or maybe scheduled something different after that gig. But I've seen some games this year. I'm good.
You don't want to go. You could go down to the dugout, climb on top of the dugout again, and give them peace of your mind.
The last thing they need is, hey, isn't that the guy that threw out the first pitch last season? I don't know if we need that. I don't know if Benetti needs to look down and go, oh Christ, that's my friend. I can't have that. Plus, I'm not a boozy anymore, so I don't. It would just be a weird South Side rage on my part, jumping a first base coach, that sort of energy.
Oh God,
they have netting for that now.
Thank heavens. I remember when that happened, when those guys jumped the first base coach, and people like here in LA, like Josh, you were asking if people ask about it, and they're like, hey, you're a White Sox fan. What do you think of that? And I go, I think those guys grew up 3 blocks from where I grew up. And like, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, you grew up in Hometown, which I did not know existed until because I think whenever I heard Hometown, I just assumed it was like marketing for Chicago itself or a different suburb saying, oh, that's your hometown. Right. I didn't actually realize there's a place called Hometown, Illinois.
Yeah, it's it's basically 87th and Cicero, in between Cicero and Pulaski, in between 87th and I think 93rd or something like that. Like basically 1 mile by 1 mile. It's like not all that big. It was a great place to grow up. Very grateful for the friendships I've had there. And, my buddy Paul Pardica and I would go to, our parents would drive us to opening day for the White Sox. And, we would, my stepbrother and I would ride our bikes from our house in Hometown to anywhere. If any White Sox if Bill Naharodny was appearing at a Jewel, we would ride our bike there to meet Bill Naharodny, or my hero Alan Bannister. We would go see him at a bank signing autographs. So it was a great place to grow up, and it was it kind of had a small town feel, even though it was right next to Chicago.
Yeah.
Hey, you promised an Alan Bannister reference, and you met your quota 50 minutes in. So there you go.
You know what? I'm not going to lie to you. I've been panicked about it. I felt I had to get it in, and there it was.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, again, you could see Jimmy. For those in Chicago, he'll be in Rosemont at Zany's Thursday night, September 14th. The show starts at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. You can buy tickets online, and I'm sure that show is going to be a lot more entertaining than the Chicago White Sox Minnesota Twins game that'll be happening.
So
that
come and
same
see
night.
us.
Yeah, come see Jimmy. Again, that's at Zany's in Rosemont. And Jimmy, this has been such a delight. Jim and I could really use a laugh, because everything we've been talking about has just been so ridiculous these 9 days covering the Chicago White Sox. So we really appreciate you hopping on our show.
I was very flattered when you reached out to me. I really, really, truly appreciate it. And if anybody, again, wants to come out and see my nonsense at Zany's, please do. I got a guy named Fritz Nothnagel is opening for me, and he lives in Orland Park. He is a huge White Sox fan as well. So we'll be representing the White Sox there, as well as doing our nonsense. Again, guys, I love what you guys do on Twitter. I think in different circumstances, if we were in the same town, we would all hang out and spend time together. Just by other things you guys post, I think there's a lot of similar likes and thoughts about the world and country, as well as our favorite team. So I think I'm really honored that you guys asked me to be a part of this, truly.
Well, again, thank you so much, Jimmy.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
And again, that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live. You can follow us on Twitter. We're at Sox Machine. Follow Jimmy on Twitter. He's at Jimmy Pardo. And obviously follow their podcast show at Never Not Funny as well. And reminder, buy your tickets for Jimmy at Zany's in Rosemont Thursday night, September 14th. Again, I think it'll be more entertaining than the White Sox game. But that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're over all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, alongside Jim Margulis and Jimmy Pardo. I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.